What's up, guys? It's Steve Cardenas, aka Rocky the Red Power Ranger, and you are watching Smart Tank Revolution.
And welcome back to the Smart Tank Revolution, where we always kick out at 2. I am your host, Flying Solo, the benevolent, intelligent Mr. Donnie Wonderful. And today, we're going to do something different. This is story time, but not an original story. This one comes from the Facebook group, The Signature Spot, highlighting the past and present of professional wrestling. I saw this post a couple of weeks ago. It was actually posted on 420. I saw this post about Percy Pringle, a.k.a. Paul Bearer, in Reddit. And I thought that, I said, one day I'm going to just record a read-along, or I'm going to narrate the entire post and just weigh in and give my thoughts on it, because I think that this is something that shows and that really personifies the camaraderie of the boys, especially back then in the territory days. I believe that being a professional wrestler at the time, and this was late 80s, probably even earlier than that, because where this story kicks off is around 1990. So, yeah, quite some time ago, 33 years ago. But nevertheless, I think that it proves that this profession was, amongst the boys, they took it to they gave it a fraternal meaning. It definitely was a fraternity, and I've read this article only once. It's fairly short, well, a couple of paragraphs in here, but we're gonna do the reading rainbow deal, or listen along as I narrate it to you in my radio narration voice. But no, I thought this story was cool, and that's pretty much the only when I meant that I wanted to weigh in on it. It just stuck with me because, this is literally how we all should be. One hand washing the other. You guys see the thumbnail. I do remember seeing Paul Bearer as Percy Pringle later on in life, during his Paul Bearer run. But when they started airing NWA and AWA, I don't remember which promotion he was in, but when they started airing those recordings and those tapings on like classic ESPN way back in the day, that I saw that footage, I saw Jeff Jarrett when he was really young wrestling for his dad. I saw the Von Erichs, and I remember Percy Pringle, aka Paul Bearer, saying, "Damn, he looked drastically different." But we're gonna get into this again. This comes from the Facebook group, The Signature Spot, and on whenever you guys get a chance, they're on, it looks like they're on Twitter, Instagram, and they even have a website too, thesignaturesspot.com. I'll make sure to leave links to all in the description, but give them a follow and give them a like. They have some really great content and backstories. So I'm going to tilt my screen, and the story will begin now. All right, let's read this. Percy Pringle, a.k.a. Paul Bearer, shares a story of how just days before Christmas in 1990, his car was repossessed and he was on the verge of bankruptcy until a call to Rick Rude changed his fate. It was 4 days before Christmas in Dallas, Texas. World Class Championship Wrestling had closed down a couple of years before, and the USWA was ready to move back to Tennessee to make room for the new Global Wrestling Federation at the Sportatorium. I found myself without a job and on the verge of bankruptcy. My car had been repossessed, and we didn't have the money for a Christmas tree, much less presents to put under one. It became painfully hard to look into the eyes of my then 10-year-old and 3-year-old sons. I knew in my heart that my wrestling career was over, and it was time to make a drastic change. I called my friend, Ravishing Rick Rude, who was working for the WWF at the time. I told Rick exactly what was going on in my life, and that I planned on moving back home to Alabama and go back to work in the funeral industry. He was very sympathetic and asked me not to make any quick decisions. In fact, Rick told me that he would call me back before the end of the day. When we talked again a couple of hours later, he said, "Vince wants you to call him at home." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Now, let me know what he has to say," Rick concluded. I immediately fell back onto the sofa, dropping Vince McMahon's telephone number to the floor. After about 20 minutes, I finally realized that it wasn't a dream and gathered the strength to dial Mr. McMahon's private home number. "Where have you been all these years?" I remember Vince asking me, and after some small talk, he told me that he would certainly like to meet with me after the holidays. The conversation still didn't solve my Christmas problems, but I did have a sleepless night thinking that I may finally make it to the Fed. Early the next morning, my phone rang and it was Mr. McMahon's right-hand man, Pat Patterson. Pat wanted to know if I could catch an early afternoon flight to New York because Vince wanted to see me sooner than expected. Of course, my answer was positive, and he provided the flight information I needed. Things were happening so quickly, I could hardly digest them. Darkness was falling over the New York skyline as my American Airlines jet made its way into JFK Airport. As I walked down the jetway, I spotted a well-dressed gentleman holding a card with my name written across it. I identified myself. He took my bag and told me to follow him to my limousine. Limousine? Hell, I don't even own a car, I thought to myself. I actually felt like I was one of the Beverly Hillbillies as the limo took me through New York City and into Connecticut. Finally, we arrived at a majestic 5-star hotel in Stamford, where I was whisked away to my penthouse suite. I wasn't in the room 5 minutes before my phone rang, and it was Pat Patterson. "Percy, Vince wants to see you at 10 o'clock in the morning. Pat told me I'll pick you up at 9:45. In the meantime, you can eat, drink, and do anything you want to do. Just sign your name. It's all courtesy of Titan Sports." To say that I was nervous is an understatement. I was scared to death as I entered Vince McMahon's office the next morning, which, by the way, was my wedding anniversary, December 22nd, 1990. We talked about everything under the sun. It didn't take long for Vince to make me feel right at home. As he looked over my resume, he began to laugh. I didn't have a clue what was going on. "You have a degree in mortuary science?" Mr. McMahon questioned me. This is just too much. Little did I know, they were looking for a manager for The Undertaker, and Vince wasn't aware that I had a background in funeral service, as well as being a wrestling manager. It was a match made in heaven, and when I left Titan Towers, I had a WWF contract in hand. We made it through the holidays. The WWF contract was a suitable anniversary gift for Diana and myself. I went on the road in January 1991 as the WWF character known as Paul Bearer, managing The Undertaker. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Talk about a Rocky Balboa moment. Ladies and gentlemen, that story is what we all love to hear. Like, those are something like this is traditionally saved for a Hall of Fame speech. Now, unfortunately, Paul Bearer passed away some time ago, but wouldn't you all have loved to hear that story come from him? Because I'm pretty sure they would have painted, I mean, these were his words, yes, but, it was written, it was articulated, very beautifully, actually. Everything grammatically correct, but you like to hear the voice flexion as they tell the story themselves. Maybe he would have teared up on one of these moments, but these stories tug at your heartstrings, and it tugged on mine. So I just wanted to cut this mic on and make this video and share this. Shout out to the signature spot. Like I said, if I remember, please, if I forget, don't crucify me. But I should remember now, but the link to the signature spot, where to find them and their pages, should be in the description box below. Thank you guys for listening to this read along, and until next time, for Joey Business, I'm Donnie Wonderful. Smart Tank Revolution. We'll see you on the next one.